Christian Larsen.
But depending on whether or not Larson's going to work outside. And a left hook catches King. Larsen is teeing off. I don't know if King is...
All right, we might as well start now. We're already in it. We're already in here. So Catchweight update. So I have Chris Larsen here in the Unified MMA. He's coming back from training today. So you train out of the Hayabusa Center?
I started with Hayabusa.
Okay.
I've kind of switched over now. A few of us from Hayabusa started training at Snake Pit MMA, which is now Shaved Bear MMA.
Okay.
And then we, for striking, then kickboxing out of Frank Lee's with Kedro Noda.
I love that name, Shaved Bear. It's amazing. What's his name? Nico put me on to KB Buller, who also trains over there. So he was describing, the level of talent and the level of people over there that, that train. And I want to talk to you about that a little bit because there are not a lot of heavyweights in the world that fight, or even like remotely athletic enough for certain sports. So finding a place like Shaved Bears, where there's so many other heavyweights and so many other big men that you're able to work. How has that affected you in your training, especially moving over from Hayabusa?
Oh, it's been good. I got lucky enough to meet Tanner Bozer. We worked together actually when I was managing a strip club here in town, and he was my head doorman. So he brought me out. He's another heavyweight that was fighting with Unified MMA. He's just recently been signed with the UFC. Mm-hmm. So started training with him, and that caliber of fighter. We've got one of the bigger teams in Canada right now. I think we've got seven professional fighters. Three of them have contracts with major promotions overseas, and UFC, Invicta, M1. Like we got a good group of guys that train together, so it's a great opportunity.
What does it say? Steel sharp steel?
Yeah,
that's great.
Exactly.
How, out of curiosity, how many of you guys fight in Unified? So I just recently learned about Unified. So how many of you guys at Shaved Bears fight at Unified?
We've got about 7 of us.
7. It's supposed to be Unified's supposed to be one of the more premier places in Canada to fight. So to have 7 are they all heavyweights? Are they all middleweights? Or half and half?
We've got people in every category, right up from lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight, everything. So we've got the last Unified card that we had 7 of there were 9 fights and 7 of them were our guys.
Right.
So we're kind of taking over the Unified scene here right now.
Yeah, I mean, even for yourself, I want to talk about your career and then also what's coming up for your career. You have a big fight coming up. But before we get to that point, because I think that's going to be the pinnacle of this conversation, I want to talk about, your journey to get there. So where did you start? Where was your martial arts background? Where does this all begin?
I used to wrestle.
Okay.
Wrestled all through high school and a year of juniors with the Golden Bears here in Alberta at the U of A.
Okay.
So that was kind of my background. I got a lot of opportunities with them, wrestling all across the country at a pretty high level. And I kind of fell away from it for a while until, as I said, I started working in town here at Diamonds. I was general manager at the strip club, and Tanner Bozer was my head doorman. And when he was getting ready for his Tim Hag rematch, I kind of just volunteered as a punching bag and somebody to move around with. So showed up and training 4 or 5 days a week anyway, helping him get ready for his fight, and just kind of made sense to keep doing it for myself. So.
That's a common story I hear a lot. I hear a lot of people getting their start in wrestling, but also the other common story I hear is like training partners who are getting put on by bigger names, by people who are like, hey, this guy's real good. You should go ahead and have him. I guess Artem Lobov is one of those guys, like where he started off as a sparring partner for Conor. Now he's blossomed into this, the goat talk, and him in the bare knuckle boxing. Would you ever do bare knuckle boxing out of curiosity? There's not a lot of heavyweights, so it's crazy.
You know what? I've been approached twice now for bare knuckle boxing, mainly over in Europe.
Okay.
I think that I would probably do it just to say that I did it. I mean. like that's that's just classic. But I don't think I would want to make a career out of it, especially not at heavyweight, man. Like there's no way you're walking away from that without injury.
Well, I'll stop you there. There's no one under 135 pounds. Like there's no in any weight class, no one walks away from that unscathed. It just looks horrible. It's some of the most exciting TV that I've seen in a very long time. I've watched just about all of them. But yeah, that would be the interesting notch, and they're paying. I mean, I don't know about the other ones, but the bare knuckle fighting league up in America is doing very well. They're pulling all these names in. Most recently, they got Bigfoot Silva and one of the brothers. There's like two brothers in the UFC. What the hell was his name? I forgot, but he was retired. Gabriel Gonzaga? I think it's Gabriel Gonzaga.
Okay.
So Gabriel Gonzaga's gonna fight, and I don't know if that's a good thing, but they're gonna do it. But yeah, they seem to be pulling all these names. They had Paulie Malignaggi and Artem, and they had all these other people from the UFC over. So it's definitely growing as a sport. I love to see it. It's still kind of niche a little bit. There's still not a ton of people that know about it, but the people that do know about it.
Huge entertainment value, but it really is just blood sport. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of blood sport, let's get back into your MMA career. So you had that background in wrestling. You're wrestling in Canada. You had a little bit of time in between that, and then you go to you meet the gentleman. You said Tanner at Diamonds in is that in Edmonton?
Yeah, Edmonton, Alberta.
In Edmonton. So you go on and you become the training partner there. So when you're training with him, and you know, I know it kind of seems like you kind of moseyed into it, and you kind of like fell into the sport that way. But what really grabbed you about it? Like what reached out to you about that sport? Like what is one thing that you were like, this is it? Like what was that moment? What was that defining moment for you?
I think it's always I've always held MMA and fighting as kind of the pinnacle of sports competition, really. Like it's just defining. You get people who are, you know, I can beat your ass at soccer, you know, I can beat you in football, but right. Like no, I can just beat you. Like it's kind of the lowest common denominator for sports. So I've always loved it. You know, it's always been great, and it was something that I turned out to be okay at, and I figured I'd just run with it, man. So
I'd say you're a little bit better than okay. I mean, I haven't had the honor to look at any of your fights so far. I can't find anything really on any of the search engines other than Fight TV. So it looks like I'm gonna have to go out and go get Fight TV in order to watch some of those fights. But I did some extensive research on how those fights ended, and you know where you're at in your career, and I think you have 5 fights right now, five pro fights right now, right?
Yeah.
So out of those 5 fights, you have 4 total wins. 3 of those wins are first round finishes, which is complete insanity. 2 of those wins are in under a minute, 1 submission, 1 KO, and your inside cage time is about 12 minutes total time. So you're out here, bringing first round management like their name, right? You're giving some claim to the fame to the name, right? So you're out there, and it makes you a very interesting fighter. To watch it on paper, right? So you look at it, you're like, well, why should I get into Unified? Why should I get into MMA? Well, Chris Larsen's out here killing people in the first round, right? So you're an appeal, you're in a name, and then obviously that's giving you your success in the cage, and then also going forward has given you this shot. So given that your total cage time's about 12 minutes, the longest fight that you've had went 2 rounds. I think it was against Lee Main. Yeah. So can you tell me about that fight? So tell me a little bit about that fight because that's your longest fight. So where did you have to dig to get that win out?
Yeah, that was my I guess it would have been my second fight against somebody that was a legit opponent. The first fight, Jared Kilkenny, was one of actually his. The guys from his gym, and that fight didn't go well. That was my first loss there, the third fight. So coming into that, the game plan was just stay composed and not make mistakes. And Lee Mean, God bless him, he walked into that cage at 50 years old on a 6-fight win streak. But the game plan was really just to stall him out and wait until he had a heart attack and jump him on the ground. And that's kind of how that went. he punched me in the face for about a round and a half, but then he gassed out, and I got on top of him and just took it to him. But a lot of great pictures of Lee in that fight. He looked great.
Okay, so obviously I didn't get to see the fight, and obviously came out with the victory there. So my next question, I guess this is a question I typically see analysts ask when they talk about fighters who don't have fights that really make it past this first or second rounds. They have the question about the gas tank, right? That's a common thing that I have. So my question to you is, how do you typically train? What is your preparation for longer fights? Do you have in your mind, like, I'm going to be this maverick that's going out there killing people in the first round, or what's the preparation like there for you?
Nah, man, I don't have that luxury. I've got a coach who's in charge of my strength and conditioning, and I would love to train for first round fights, man. That would be wicked. But unfortunately, I kind of got to do what the coach says, and that's it's hell. We got Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We've got our conditioning sessions. And we got we got a couple of pieces of equipment that we just run a circuit on, the Versa Climber, the Aerodyne bike. We got one of these combat skier things, and it's absolute hell. And it was absolute hell when I was training for a 3-round fight. Now that I'm training for a 5-round fight, and even though nobody expects this round to go outside of 2 rounds anyway, I still got to train like it's a 5-round camp. So. Right. No, it's awful, but the conditioning's coming up. I don't get to slack on that, so they stay on it, and it's coming along.
It seems to be like the focal point for a lot of people, especially in this sport, because when you get past a certain point when you're not able to use sheer athleticism in especially in professional league to get those wins, unless you're like sometimes we have freaks in nature. Sometimes we have like Brock Lesnar, like who only needs 3 fights and he'll be the champion, and then it's all over the place from there. Anyone can win a fight at that point. But it seems to be the concurrent champions, the ones that defend belts, the ones who acquire belts, do what you do. They go out there and they suffer in that off time. But I want to know what your philosophy is on like overtraining, and I don't really know much about overtraining. I talked to my wrestling buddy about it. He's like, it is something that happens, but you work through it, and it kind of builds that mental toughness. What is your thought about overtraining, especially being a bigger guy yourself?
Well, we've got a pretty set schedule that we follow as far as what we're training, and our coaches are a little bit more in tune than we are on that. Like myself, and I'm sure most fighters that you talk to, like there's no mentality where we're going to stop and take it easy. So a lot of the time, that's when we've got our coaches that are stepping in and telling us, "Hey, like we're going to take the day, or we're going to take a day off," kind of thing, and they're kind of watching for that. On the other side of it, we do for myself with my work schedule, my fight camps are 4 or 5 weeks, so it's a lot shorter than some other people are having. So it's a little bit more intense trying to cram it in a little bit, but we still have Saturdays off where we're not doing anything and resting up, and the week before the fight, we're taking it easy and we're resting. So there's a lot that you got to work through, but I mean, that's just the name of the game. You're always going to be sore. You're always going to be banged up.
I also want the listener to understand it's so funny to hear when I hear fighters say, I'll have like a day off. It doesn't even really seem as like a day off. Like you still have to. A lot of people still have to work. A lot of people still have a lot of family members to take care of. Where do you find that balance? Because I mean, it's as far as all that goes. I'm assuming you have to cut some things out. But as far as your work life balance, how is that treating you so far?
It's I've kind of minimized my life when I train right now. So I've got the luxury where I don't have a whole lot else to worry about. I work in the oil field out here in Alberta, so I'm on a drilling rig 8 months out of the year. Right. But I take time off. I take a couple of hitches off work so I can just focus on training. And yeah, my days off are my days off. I know a lot of the guys, they're working through, or they got families and things like that they're taking care of. But I'm lucky enough that that I can just kind of take it easy, and I do my meal prep and maybe watch a movie or something like that. But it's pretty laid back.
That's, you know, it's people don't understand like how difficult. I had a friend who went to the Middle East to work on an oil rig, and it's like some of the most dangerous shit that I've ever heard of in my entire life, and then B, some of the hardest. Like, I don't know what it's like in Canada. I assume it's hard as shit because it gets cold. It gets real cold. Like, he's out in the desert, so he had to deal with the desert heat. So this is like the opposite end of that. What kind of adversities do you face having that, and then also trying to balance work or training?
Mainly the working on the rigs here in Alberta. It's not nearly as dangerous as it is their safety protocols, everything like that. It's not dangerous. It's cold as shit in the winter. Like, there's no getting around that. Yeah, life sucks when it's minus fuck you out, but we just got to deal with it.
Right.
But the main issue is, I'm out of town working for 14 days straight. So during that time, I don't get to train. I'm working 14-hour days. Like, I can barely make it to the gym when I get back, and then trying to cram in some training on your weeks off. But when you got just 7 days off, 6 days by the time you're done driving, the last thing you really want to do is go get punched in the face by a bunch of dudes. Like, there's way more fun things I can be doing with my time off. So it's kind of hard to commit to a training regimen when under those circumstances. But usually when the fight's coming up or you got something to work towards, it's a little easier.
I want to commend you for that. That's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to go out there anyway, to lock yourself in a cage and fight another human being, especially when you're heavyweight. Heavyweights in boxing, heavyweights in UFC, those are the most terrifying guys in the entire world. So for you to go out there and do what you do in your spare time do what you have to do to prepare for a fight, that's very admirable, and that's awesome. You should be proud of yourself, man. You seem very humble, so like, I'm not going to get that out of you. So I want to say it.
I appreciate it. It's kind of a sick hobby we have, but
hey, it's a fun hobby to watch.
Yeah, well,
it's as long. I don't want, if it's like a sore topic, we don't have to talk about it as much as in detail. But it is. I mean, it's like the focal point of this fight, in my opinion, is that you fought this guy before, and then he did beat you.
Yes.
So, I have, is it okay if we break that down a little bit as far as
absolutely, man.
So I didn't see the fight, but there are, like, I guess, like, bigger questions for me to ask aside from just the fight, right? So, my question to you out of the gate is, like, what did you take away from that fight? In loss. So how people rebound from loss seems to be like the mark of their career, like what happens with their career later on.
Well, I guess the only thing that I can say about what I took, it was probably the best loss I could have had. It was early in my career. It was against a guy that I was absolutely an underdog. The guy had 23 pro fights. It was my third fight. It was early enough in my career that I hadn't, it wasn't like it interrupted this big streak of finishes. I got it out of the way. I'm not, you're walking into the cage, you get the nerves, like, what if I lose? That question's answered now. I've been through that. It's not a stressor for me anymore. I get to kind of just focus on going out and doing what I can do. So in that regard, I was lucky. As for what I learned from the fight, don't do jiu-jitsu shit in a heavyweight fucking MMA match.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I took him down. He cut me early in the first. I took him down, and I was just thinking that I got to finish because I was bleeding from the eye. I didn't really know how bad it was, and so when I took him down, I was in top position, and instead of doing heavyweight things and punching him in the face, I decided I was going to be a hero, and I fell back for a heel hook because I kind of thought he left an opening for it, but I didn't secure it. I didn't do anything other than pull him right on top of me, and then he did what heavyweights do, and he punched me in the face until the ref stopped the fight. So
that's it's interesting that you say heel hook because I hear that a lot maybe with the smaller guys it's way different, but I hear that making a surgence in MMA. So it's interesting to see through the heavyweight perspective where it's like if you don't get that, you're in serious. The margin of error is so much higher when you're a heavyweight. So in that case,
I've been completely banned from doing heel hooks or arm bars or anything like that. So I can't even do it in training. My coach is coming over and yelling at me.
See, but that's it's indicative of where your mindset's at as far as like approaching the fight differently. I don't know if there's like a bunch of definitions for insanity. This is like the white girl one that they use all the time that they put in memes. It's like if you repeat the same thing over and over again, it's the thing of insanity. As much as it is a cliche, it reigns true. So we also so we get a little bit of how your brain works as far as your approach to fight. It appears to be a cerebral thing, and it appears to be a lot of guys at Shave Bears and also consequently Hayabusa have also been a very cerebral fighter. So it's good to see that you're in good spirits and that you're going into this fight with a clear head. And that's important to note. So anyone looking at your record who doesn't see the year on that loss, that was almost 3 years ago, right? I think. Yeah. So
yeah, 2017, I think.
Okay, so then 2 years. Yeah. We're like 8 months in this year now, or 9 months into this year now. So
two and a half years ago for sure.
Yeah, 2.5 years. So 2.5 years is a long time, and since then you've been on a tear. You've been winning you're on a 2-fight win streak since then, and that's an indication to me. At least you're getting better every fight against some other people as good as yourself in a Premier League like Unified MMA in Canada. So. What I have to ask, just like on a philosophical level, what's it like going in there against someone that you've previously just through a mental standpoint, what is it like? What is it like going in there against getting locked in a cage with someone as big as you that you fought before?
I can't tell you what it's going to be like walking into the cage. I guess that's a bridge I'll cross when I get to it. Yeah. But I know the motivation and the training, it's pushed me a lot more. Like this is an opportunity for redemption. It's an opportunity to win a belt. Like there's a lot going on with this fight that it's kind of a must win. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm going into this fight the best version of myself. And it's as for my opponent, it's tough. I really wish I could hate him, but I mean the guy's a hard guy not to like. So I fought his coach there last year, and he fought Tanner Bozer, my training partner here in May. So we've had a lot of interaction, and he's a pretty stand-up guy. So it's not like I'm coming in with a grudge or anything like that, but I'm definitely coming in with something to prove.
I think the grudge is just based off of any grudge, I guess, is based off of a series of events. So if your event is only that we have fought in a controlled setting and there's been no other bad blood between that, then there should be no reason why you go in there to have a grudge against somebody that you're fighting. This is something that you're doing for a living. So but you don't even need the grudge to have that storyline there. That's still a storied experience. There's a lot of exchange between you and this camp. So this is an exciting fight for the viewer looking in. So this, before we move on and talk about, I guess, because I have a couple questions about diamonds, because I have like similar funny strip club experiences, and my dad has told me some fun because he used to work security when I was a kid at a strip club. So I want to know some crazy strip club stories. But before we go there, I just want to say I want to admire what you're doing. I admire what you're doing. Coming back against a person that you did lose against, and this is going to be pretty much at this stage. This is going to be the biggest stage of your career. Going against someone who is a champion, someone that you fought before. So this is very, very admirable, and you should be proud about where you are and
Thanks, man.
Having got this. It's an honor to have interviewed you. Let's get into the stripper shit. So. So you say you're a manager at Diamonds? Yeah, from 2015 to 2018. What's the craziest stripper experience? I need to know the craziest stripper experience. If it's legal, if you're allowed to legally tell me. So.
Well, I mean, there's all the day-to-day stuff. But I guess one of the most fun as a manager, every 2 weeks we were as part of our job description. We would have a promo night. And what the promo night basically was is we would take a few of the dancers and we would take a few of the bartenders and the servers, and we'd hop in a limo and we would go bar to bar and just drink and party. And this is what we were told to do. Like I'm shit, man.
Are you gonna argue? Like
we got to take him out, and nights usually ran a long time. We'd end up back at the club, and we got managers falling off stages and girls dancing, and it was a hell of a time. There's the other side of it. You always get idiots, and you get people causing problems. But I mean, like when Tanner Boser is my head doorman, one of the most capable as well as humble people that I've met, and and he was able to deal with anything. I guess the only thing that I had to deal with is when we had guys, because here in Alberta, you're not allowed anywhere near a dancer when she's when her clothes are off. We've got this 3-foot barrier thing here in Alberta that's law. So nobody, in Ontario, you get people going up on stage and stuff like that, but you can't do that. Absolutely can't do that here in Alberta. And the only thing that I had to deal with my doorman is anytime somebody did hop up on stage while there was a dancer, for some reason it seemed like the doorman's goal was to make an NFL highlight reel tackle on these poor bastards. That was, and I mean, when you got a drunk dude standing on a elevated platform, and you've got a heavyweight barreling through it, trying to
protect the girls, bro.
Well, it caused a bit of a scene, but I mean, for the most part, it was a really good time. Some of my best friends I met there at the club. Comparing it to the rigs, I mean, the money wasn't as good, but the scenery was a lot better. So
that's when my dad, when I was a kid, he worked. Have you ever seen the TV show The Sopranos?
Yes, yeah.
So there's a Bada Bing club. So that's actually in New Jersey. It's an actual club called Satin Dolls. Yeah. So my dad worked in a couple places. He worked in TNA's and he worked in Satin Dolls on a couple nights. So he Satin Dolls. There's no drinking. It's just all. I guess I don't know if it's a go-go place or whatever. But he would see like football players all the time come in because the MetLife Giant Stadium is like 30 minutes away from Satin Dolls. So they would come and all the time. So he's like, as much as it was crazy dealing with the grown-ass men, he's like, the women were the most violent amongst themselves. That he saw. He was like, they were fighting each other, doing drugs, and we had to stop them from fucking each other up every other night. So that was one story that, or there's a few stories that he told me that I was like very surprised. He's like, you walk around with a hard on for the first week, and then after a while, it's just like, they're gross. Like, he's like, they're fucking gross. He's like, I saw more shit that I didn't want to see on a regular basis.
Yeah, that was the running joke that if you took a camera into the back room and you saw what these girls were like when they weren't on stage, there wouldn't be many people wanting to pay money to see them. But we luckily enough we didn't really have that issue. The scene got cleaned up pretty well up here. Right. Additionally, most of the strip clubs were owned by the same company out here, and the agency that we had books everything in Alberta and BC. So, you screw up and you get banned for 3 months, you're kind of relegated to work in dive bars and part-time strip clubs and in small towns. It almost sounds like a union. What's that?
It almost sounds like a union, like a bouncer union.
But we didn't really have too many problems. Not to say that stuff never happened, but. Right.
Listen, I understand plausible deniability. We can't. We're not gonna get into admitted crimes. I understand, but I mean that's basically all I had. I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy ass schedule to come and do this show.
That's good talking to you.
Hey, I wish you luck. I wish you luck, man. I'll try to get fight time. I'll get fight TV for that fight. That it's been decided. You and KB Bowler and I think Pat Pitlick will go. Is gonna eventually go back to Unified at some point. So I've got a vested interest.
He's got a boxing fight coming up here in a couple weeks too. So
I think his boxing fight's this week. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
like 7 days or something like that. I think.
Right. But is there anything that you wanted to plug, sponsors or anything, family, whatever? Who cares?
I don't know, man. Just my gyms. My main sponsor right now is my boy Billy out of his tattoo shop here, 3 Monkeys Tattoos and Apparel. So if you happen to be coming out here and you need some work, that's the place to go.
Awesome. Well, that's basically it. Catchweight update, everybody.